But gentlemen, introduce yourself and your companies and what you do so that we can get started and basically talk a little bit about this very exciting space, which is getting crowded really, really fast. So there's a lot of interesting things, and I'm sure the audience is also interested in knowing quite a few things from you about the emerging business models and opportunities. So let's start at the far right.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcus Almer. I'm president of Almer Blank. We're an interactive media agency in Venice. We specialize on video and application development for the Flash platform. We have mainly Fortune 500 clients or who work for their agencies. We do more and more development in the entertainment industry just because of the nature of Flash and their capabilities. We're an Adobe solution provider, solution partner. And just recently we built a broadband video player for E-entertainment, for Style Network, and getting more and more requests for broadband application for the web.
My name is Ted May. I'm with Synacor. Synacor provides private label portal and premium service bundles for a wide variety of broadband ISPs, both cable and DSL.
Bob Whitmore, co-founder and CEO of Empower Digital Media. We have developed the system for the automated generation of media. Our sense is that the real need, because of the tremendous ocean of media that's now on the internet, is a system that can navigate and, in an entertaining television-like way, present video. Our first product offering, now in version 1.0, is StimTV. And StimTV has two corridors or channels, StimTV Cinema and StimTV Music. We're going to be launching StimTV Shop, StimTV Fashion, and other verticals in the coming calendar quarters.
I'm Tom McInerney. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Gooba. Gooba started out as a video search for Usenet. We were founded in 1998, haven't taken outside money, survived the bubble, and are profitable. Currently, we're delivering movies and television from Warner Brothers and Sony.
Steve Banfield, General Manager, Senior Vice President, General Manager of Sony Connect. I actually have sort of two hats I wear that relate to the video space. One is on the Sony Connect side, which is an aggregator of digital media content and distributor of digital media content for Sony devices of all companies' content. But also a group that I'm responsible for is called Sony Media Software, which creates all the applications for editing video and creating digital media and digital music for consumers and professionals, for all these folks who are creating all the user-created content that's being uploaded and shared and shipped around the internet.
I'm Jeff Carnes. I'm the head of multimedia products for Yahoo, and that includes Yahoo Video, Image, Audio, and podcasting.
Excellent introductions out of the way. The big question, and I think it's on the top of the mind of anybody who's interested in online video. The big question is, what are the business models for this space, and which are the ones, in your opinion, are likely to stick? You know, we have around 200 plus companies experimenting with online video space in different capacities as service providers. And so since we have this panel there, which ranges from a big portal down to people who are doing private label, white label stuff and providing actual technology, let's talk about some of the business models in your, in this panel's opinion, which are likely to stick. And if you could tell me some reasons why they are likely to stick. And why don't we start with you, Jeff, since you seem to have the user base to talk about that.
Sure. Well, the business models, and if you think about it from a quantification perspective, so when it comes to video advertising or video subscription, download, direct to own, those models are in the market today and having varying degrees of success. I think the question is also, well, I have the model, and let's take video advertising. So last year, television advertising was about 70 billion or so. Search advertising was about 15 billion, and video advertising in the U.S. was about 300 million. And that growing about 35% a year. Subscriptions were still a little bit higher, about 400 million, but growing slower. I think if folks remember the late 90s, advertising was coming online, and a lot of folks were moving in that direction, and then folks moved back into the subscription model. Reels certainly moved in that direction as well. Now the pendulum seems to be coming back to the advertising space, and certainly Yahoo has a lot of expertise in that model. But it really is about the content. So for most of the video advertising market today, most of the ad dollars are being generated by the quote kind of major content providers. So the folks that are putting out, from the major studios, the major broadcasters, putting out the content. A lot of folks starting to experiment as audience share is shifting from that category of content down all the way down to user-generated content. The question is, well, can the advertising dollar, can the brand come down in that respect as well? So I think for right now, all of the models, including the download to own, are also in play, and many companies are experimenting. But what we're seeing still from a kind of pure dollar perspective, that the advertising market and subscription market seem to be, at least today, the front runners.
Since we have STEM and Gooba here, maybe you guys can talk about advertising and the download model and see which one, in your opinion, has more legs going forward.
Sure. I mean, so we're now offering movies and television programming, and you can basically rent it or you can download it and own it. It's doing pretty well, but it's not exploding for us, honestly. So my feeling is there's a certain barrier to get people to pull out their credit card and type in their credit card information address. So we're also going to be experimenting with an ad model and just basically run the two next to each other and see what does better. But we get advertisers approaching us all the time. There's really not enough inventory online now for a good quality targeted audience. So we're pretty optimistic about running content for free with interstitial ads or pre-roll or post-roll ads, because I think you just end up getting more people looking at this stuff, and you just get more attention.
Our sense is that the advertising model is going to be the best model. Obviously, we also believe in direct marketing of products. We believe that the internet will become and is becoming the primary venue for direct marketing of products. As far as the advertising model is concerned, we're launching a product called the Quick Ad, which is a 7-second teaser ad into a multi-tiered experience. I think the internet generation, and that is not just the target demographic of the totally younger crowd, is a very impatient group. And my belief is that if you do a pre-roll ad, you're very likely to lose your audience immediately. The 15-second, 30-second experience isn't going to work. I think you have to hook them in with an extremely entertaining ad that leads them into an opt-in to a deeper experience with that particular product. And those ads need to be highly targeted. One of the advantages of our system is that it responds to profiles, usage, and request information.
So I'll play the devil's advocate here. Everybody talks about advertising. Well, in 2000, we knew how quickly the advertising just evaporated, right? And then people look at how successful Google has been and Yahoo have been, and they kind of assume that the advertising is working. If you break down the online advertising numbers, they don't really work for anyone except Google and Yahoo, and to some extent Microsoft, that they account for 80% of online advertising. So in that situation, how do startups kind of figure out advertising models, and how do, the big reason YouTube is such a huge hit is because there is no advertisements there. Like, you don't get to see any ads. So there is that conflict, and perhaps, we have the experts here who can, talk about that. I think, people like Sony who have their own branded content, perhaps you have another opinion on this whole situation.
Well, I'll give a couple opinions. I mean, Jeff mentioned Reel, and Reel started, sort of early with their Reel One service, and back in the day, I was there for 4 years, and I helped start that. And it's kind of interesting. We're having this conversation: advertising or subscription or pay or something else, and I sort of, why does it have to be binary? Why does it have to be either or? I mean, the cable model isn't only, it's not either or. You pay for a basic cable subscription, you get a certain level of content, and then there's also advertising to help subsidize that content. So I agree that it's hard on a pure advertising model. If you don't have the sort of raw numbers, the scale, that can be a very difficult thing. But I think there are opportunities as you, create the right opportunities, whether it's getting to the right devices or whether it's getting just to the PC. If you can target it in the right way, I think there's some interesting opportunities. And I think for the right kinds of content, people have shown they will pull out their credit card and they will do it. And if there's ways to blend that model so that the advertising can help make it so that you're not having to pay $19.95 or $15.95 or whatever the price point is a month or per instance to get access to something, if there's some way to allow advertising to cut that cost, I think people are somewhat tolerant to that, and that's a learned behavior over, I don't know, last 40 or 50 years of television. So I think they've kind of gotten okay with that. So from a Sony perspective, in terms of our own content, I'm not part of the content companies per se, so I'll just say this. I mean, as a content company, Sony's going to go out and license its content to pretty much everybody, and from a content perspective, whether it's video or audio, they're somewhat ambivalent as to which business models are going to make it. They're going to license content to Thomas at Guba, and they're going to license content to MovieLink or Cinema Now or whoever else it is on the video side, and let you guys figure it out. I mean, that's what the business they're in. They'll license content to me. From a Sony content perspective, I don't know that there's a strong opinion one way or the other. I think from a devices or services standpoint, I think clearly we're trying to look at how do we create and blend this model in a way that simplifies it for the user and doesn't make them make a real hardcore binary choice.
I know you've been dying to say something there.
I think it's true that it's going to be not an either-or situation, but it's going to be a combination of all the different models out there. And I think the conventional wisdom is that it is all about the content, and that's driven by the content. But I question that and think that an equally important question is the value of service and providing service to the consumer. That there is an extraordinary amount of content available on the web today, both free and premium, legal and not legal. And how we rationalize that for the consumer is really still the open question. And I think there are a lot of different both service providers in the web industry who are looking at different models to cut and parse that content and purvey it to the consumer. And then you have the traditional mainline content producers who are looking to extend the value of the content that they are currently producing for perhaps other media like television, and saying how do I move that over to the web. So I think it is really going to be a combination of all of those. In the consumer's mind, historically the only content, video content, that the consumer has really shown a propensity to pay extra for is early window uncensored movies early on in the cable industry, live sporting events, and adult content. And you can argue that all three of those are really just different facets of the same thing. That people's interests are really currently conditioned to say most video content is advertising supported or just available, and then there are certain things that I will pay extra for. And what they will pay extra for, in addition to those three things that I just mentioned, is service, a value-added service layer on top of that makes it easy to access, easy to find, easy to consume, that finds for me the what I call the water cooler video, which is the video that everyone's talking about that's available on the web, but nobody really knows where it came from or what it's called or how to find it. And so where do I go to find that, even though it's available in perhaps 5 or 15 different locations, if you know where to look and how to look. But different content will find its value, whether that's advertising supported or whether it's premium subscription supported, or whether it's a la carte, in subscription form, or whether it's purchased a la carte.
From a tool perspective, like, discovery, he talks about discovery of content. Like, tell us a little bit about, like, what really needs to happen for this discovery process of video content on the web to really get big. I mean, that's clearly a big challenge. The reason YouTube works is because it's easy to find stuff on it versus some of the other sites. I mean, that's one of the things. What do you think?
I would say, yeah, that's a big challenge right now, but I think it's also a great opportunity with search technology improving. I think search is going to be an important part. Targeting is going to be an important part, and with the newest technology, we will have data available. So I think there is really a big opportunity on ad-supported content that we can create our custom program. There is technology available that makes it possible to track my viewing, and it will over time tell me where I will find my content, where it's available, and how I have the easiest access to it. And I think that's why I feel very strong that the biggest opportunities is in ad-supported content, just because of the technology, possibilities and technology to provide a real rich user experience combined with advertising. And if it's done right, we will be able to basically have the advertising being the content.
So does this mean that people like Google and Yahoo are at a slight advantage because they have the expertise in advertisements and they have expertise in search and they're dabbling in video? So does that, I mean, that's an open question. Anybody can jump in on that. You can defend your business.
Well, Google and Yahoo, I think, have what Ted talked about as value added. People come to Google or Yahoo because there's more there. There's a lot there. And yes, they have an advantage. They've got they're the 5,000-pound gorillas. They have the traffic. That's why at this point they can attract Madison Avenue and advertisers. I also, again, agree with Ted, who talks about this value added thing. That's what Google and Yahoo have. And the idea about terrestrial or linear television, the thing about that experience is that there's a program director, there's a quality of production, and you can sit back and just enjoy a show that if you can find where it is, or if you want to be sitting in front of the television when your show comes by. The problem, of course, with linear television is that the experience is expensive for them to produce. There's a lot of reruns, there's a lot of duplication, and the internet allows so much programming that I think television is definitely losing. Their ad revenues are now declining while, as Jeff said, internet advertising revenues are growing at 37% rate. So the value add has to be the ease of finding that tremendous amount for each niche audience of material that's out there. And that's, again, a navigation and presentation problem.
But see, again, when we had the music business, right, like the big problem was finding the good music till iTunes Store came along. And, I mean, they did a pretty good job of the discovery of music, right? So does that put them at an advantage right now, given their historical success in the iTunes?
But I mean, I think music and video are different enough just from and I'm sure Jeff can talk to this more from a search perspective. The metadata around music and video, I mean, with music, you had a hierarchy and a taxonomy of album, artist, genre that video is often hard to characterize, right? I mean, it's hard. I mean, you can do things with movies that way. You know, movies are these discrete things, but how do you go if you want to find the Seinfeld episode where they had the fluffy shirt, right? Is that episode number? Is that what's the title of that episode? What does that mean? How do you navigate to something you want on the video side is actually a lot harder than finding a song or a related song within a music store. It actually is a harder problem. So I don't know that any one player in any one market has any advantage because they've been successful in music. It might translate to being successful in video.
My feeling on the search is there are kind of two approaches. There's the algorithmic kind of search where you're going and you're looking for tags and names and very specific things. And then there's more the collaborative kind of social searching where you have people recommending things and people who like this, like that. We tend to think that the collaborative social searching is better. A human being can do a much better job kind of having a sense of taste and perspective than a computer can, than an algorithm can. So you take a system like iTunes, I think it's a very structured environment in keeping with Apple. It's very kind of control top down. And you look at environments like YouTube or MySpace where you have much more participation with the community there. You know, we're actually bullish on the idea of having the community recommend content, and the social aspects of discovery and search I think are going to be more interesting than the algorithmic ones.
I think that you have to draw a distinction between, when you talk of an advantage, between a moment in the sun and an advantage on a go-forward basis. And I do think Yahoo and others are enjoying a moment in the sun right now in terms of they have the eyeballs, they have the brand, they have the clean, clean, well-lighted place, as their homepage. But the consumer behavior will get out in front of that as new technology enables better sharing, better social networking, better ability to search. And then there will be a lag, and it will take longer for the advertising business to catch up to that. And they will always be, one or two steps behind in terms of where they put their dollars and where they decide to put their dollars. So whether, current position translates into advantage vis-a-vis the future, I think is an open question. But right now, the advertising dollars go where the eyeballs are and where it's most safe, I think, on the web as well, in terms of their ability to associate advertising with good quality video and a reasonable assumption about the demographic that they're reaching, et cetera.
But the content is going to go to the guys that can afford to pay the most, and those guys will be the guys that do the best job of monetizing the content. So the companies like Google, who are very, very good at monetizing, will probably have and have deep pockets, and Yahoo as well, will have a pretty significant advantage because they'll be able to go to a Sony and be able to write a very large check and say, hey, give us your content, and don't take our word for it, take this $10 million check. And that's something a company like Gooba just can't do.
Jeff, now it's your turn.
I've been listening to all of this, yes, about how we have a moment in the sun right now, and how that's always been the case. I mean, there are certain small companies also having a moment in the sun right now as well. So I think it definitely trickles down and depends on how you define moment in the sun. I think that at the end of the day, there's one thing the internet has taught us: nothing lasts forever. So whoever is number one today, that does not guarantee you're number one tomorrow. The internet moves extremely quickly, technologies move extremely quickly, people move extremely quickly. We are no longer just in a US world, we're in a global world. Broadband in Korea, for instance, they never had a legacy dial-up infrastructure. They just went straight to broadband, over 80% penetration today. While US just last year, end of last year, we crossed over more broadband subscribers now than dial-up subscribers. So I think that you always have to be on your toes. You always have to be looking forward. And I do think that, from a discovery perspective, just to touch on that, it was mentioned, 5 to 15. Last check we heard there were over 200 social video sites in the market today. So lots of people trying to get into this space. And Yahoo Video, one of the key elements to the site is discovery. So yes, we do have the ability for publishers to upload the content. We'll host that content, we'll serve that content, but we also crawl the web. We also get feeds from partners. So we do drive traffic back to third-party sites as well. So we've got the largest index of web video in the market today. And that is a key element for discovery because, as you mentioned, I don't know what site to go to. But if you come to Yahoo Video, we have that content, whether it is hosted on our service or whether it's hosted on somebody else's service, because we firmly believe in the category of open programming, that you come to Yahoo to find that content. The second was about kind of structured versus unstructured data, and I absolutely agree that it is a combination of the human and the machine. And I think at Yahoo, whether it's been Yahoo Answers, whether it's been Flickr, and we're starting to do more and more of it with Yahoo Video, the ability to take the structured data that has traditionally come from whether you've submitted a media RSS feed, whether you're a large content provider that has a taxonomy, and remember, these large content providers especially have been digitizing content for the past 10 or 15 years. Librarians at the company spending lots and lots of time internally describing taxonomies, working through their organizations, how do we describe this content, because it's not just a problem to get the content to the consumer, it's also a problem to get their content spread internally for production and post-production purposes and archiving purposes. So you've got a lot of structured data coming into the market, and we do a great job of indexing that, making that searchable. But as the content source moves down from the major content providers down into the independent film producers, down into the users and semi-professionals and video entrepreneurs or video amateurs, it becomes more and more important that if they're not going to describe their video in the best way, but the community does, so whether it's a tag, a rating, a review, a comment, something along those lines, and the ability for a search engine and technology to take that information, combine it with the structured information and produce the most relevant results to the users, that I absolutely agree is something to go for.
So there are two distinct video segments, right? I think we need to clarify that the online video from the amateurs or the user-generated content is one segment of the video market, and then there is the legal content which is coming from folks like Sony and Time Warner or whatever. So Tom, what you're saying is that people who like Google and Yahoo will be very successful in selling or monetizing the legal, more formal content. But what about the user-generated content? I mean, if I create a video and let's say YouTube or whosoever decides to put an ad in front of it, I'm going to be a little pissed because it's my video. Just because you're giving me 20 megs of storage space doesn't entitle you to make money off it. So tell us, run us through that business model. How does it work out? How do you share the bounty with the guys who are actually doing the hard work? I mean, the distribution channel seems pretty clear that you can create a site and you can monetize through advertising. How do you make money? If you're the user, I'm creating videos, I'm spending 2 months creating a funny film, and at the end of the day, I got nothing, and you got everything. So what happens in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're already seeing that. I mean, Gooba runs an affiliate program where actually we pay the user for sending us signups. Rever is doing this. I heard rumors that Google's going to do this. So I think actually the consumer will become enfranchised and they'll start to get paid. It slightly makes me nervous. It kind of reminds me of the old bubble where you had companies paying, $100, $200, $300 to acquire a consumer, and they could never ever recoup that. So there's a danger that it can go too far. But I think that, and there's also a danger of copyright. If a user uploads a South Park and they're based in Bulgaria, and you're sending them checks, you've got to have controls and technologies and things that prevent fraud. But yeah, I think the consumer will be able to use this as an opportunity and get paid, and that's when it gets interesting.
Having come from the film production business as a film producer, working with the major studios, I think that the young content producer should get friendly with the idea that often you don't make any money. And it's that moment in the sun thing. And you know, we have a very strong independent band segment. We deal with all the virtually all the independent record companies, and we also let artists upload their songs. And in that case, they're allowed then, where they have to link up to sell that, and we get an affiliate fee for selling their music. So they've got a product to sell, we help them sell it. So that's partly the answer, I think, and that is moving product for these young artists and giving them that opportunity. But also the exposure builds their audiences, and they might get more people at their band concerts, and they start building a name for themselves. It's the moment in the sun thing.
That's just hippie talk. I'm sorry. You know, it's like people, look, if I'm writing content and you're ripping it off, doesn't matter. Even if it's a stupid video of my dog, I don't want you making money from it. That's not how America works, right?
In that instance, don't upload it. We don't search and get the content off the internet. They volunteer to put it on the network. They don't want it to be used, they don't. If they don't have product to sell and the material doesn't get people to buy it. But I can tell you, as a guy who's a professional in the entertainment business, it's not a career, it is a kind of a hobby, it's a higher calling. Don't expect to make money.
Believe me, at age 40, it's not a calling. It used to be a higher calling. It's not anymore. You know, just saying, you know, I think just Rolling Stones doing those concerts at age 70, that's not calling, that's called practical money reality, but that's a whole digression from the issue.
But the role, I mean, I think what we're all trying to say is, the first, if you want to be in the business of making video or music or whatever, you want to create content and get paid for it. The reality is, in the beginning, it's hard to. It's hard to get paid for the first thing you write. It's hard to get paid for the first thing you shoot, because often it sucks. I mean, come on, it's only through practice and getting better that people recognize the talent, and you hone the talent over time. Often the guys who put up the first viral video, they don't get paid for it. And then people go, wait, these guys are really funny. And then suddenly they've got production deals, or they've got opportunities to get paid to keep recreating, keep leveraging that creativity. So on that standpoint, if somebody wants to get in the business of content creation, the tools are out there, but you end up, in the beginning, you have to sort of put yourself out there and find a way to get noticed, and that's what a lot of these sites let you do. From if you're, to your point, if you're creating a video of your dog and you upload it, and it's just sort of something you wanted to share with your friends, and somebody puts an interstitial in front of it, are you really mad if you got to upload the video for free and you got to share it with everybody? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. I don't know. But
No, I'm saying if you sell an ad against it, like if you sign up for any of these online video sites, nobody tells you that they're gonna sell ads against the content you're uploading. They don't make it very clear. Like, it's written in the the fine print, which nobody reads. Right? It's like almost. So why aren't they saying those things? I mean,
But that's it's a valid point. I mean, but in general, we've all got to make sure that the terms of service, as we're putting out services for people, it's a problem that not a problem, it's an issue that all of us who are doing consumer-facing services have to deal with, where we have to make sure that when we present something to the user, if we want to change those terms of service, or we want to start doing something new, we go back to them and say, hey, here's what we're doing new, are you okay with this? Let them opt in, or make sure that in some way there's been proper communication, because that's where the problems always start. Wait, it was in the terms of service, but it was in the third paragraph from the bottom, and people didn't read that far, and they didn't feel comfortable that, wait a minute, I'm not sure I got that, even though legally it was there before. That's just treating your customer right. That's not a video problem. That's just, we've all got to be good citizens and treat our customer right.
And we created a small video that orients the bands as to exactly what we're doing and what they're doing with it. So we not only put it in the fine print, we actually put it up on the screen.
I mean, these guys do a pretty good job. It says cigarette smoking can kill you. It's like, this video can be sold, your video will be sold against. I mean, it's like just putting that line. And I think as an industry which is trying to capture the user-generated content and the momentum from the masses, I think it's there have to be some concrete business models around this. I mean, and nobody talks about that. People assume the people are, the creators are like sheep and you can just put them in any direction. And that's a valid argument, because every time I was talking to the folks from Jib Jab, who basically had about 5 million impressions of the Jib Jab video. I mean, in CNN terms, that could have meant like close to $4 million in their pocket. And there's a lot of people who made money off that video, including, some of the video sites. So they didn't get anything. So that's the thing. Even if you have a hit, you can't make money off it, and that's one of the problems.
It's really early when it comes to the intellectual property, though, because if you look at YouTube or Meta Cafe, they've got loads of copyrighted stuff. If you type South Park, it's there. So number one, the studios have the chops to go after these guys, and also a lot of the user-generated content has soundtracks that are things like the Rolling Stones. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see probably the RIAA and the MPAA get involved at some point as well. But it would be a little bit preposterous for consumers to be too upset about their content being stolen when, for the longest time, they've been downloading, movies and things from BitTorrent, right? So
that's what's sticking to the man, when you're the man, it hurts.
I think we all need to have a certain sense of humor here, because the intellectual property laws are very, very strict historically, and I think that for the industry to move forward, and I've been impressed that they haven't gone off, the MPA hasn't gone off and started shutting down these sites. But it's still very early on that.
Jeff, you have anything to add here? I think
Well, I do. So I do think it's about incentive, and I think also it's about kind of again the content, what you're trying to do. So whether I'm just using the internet for vanity purposes, discovery purposes, exposure purposes, or I am trying to build a business or build a practice out of the content for the internet. And I think, again, early on, you're going to see experimentation on both sides, and maybe that happens once or twice. But then I think it's up to folks like us and folks sitting at this table who are dealing with the content publishers to say, what is that next step? How do you want to, what is your next incentive? What are you really trying to do? And I think once you get to that level of discussion, I think you can come to, again, a sense of humor, but I think you can also come to a real business plan.
I'm just sticking up for the little guys here, so don't get me wrong, I'm all about making money. So I think at this point,
Did you really compare cigarette smoking to the online video space?
Sure, why not? If only you guys could be that profitable. Now, that would be nice. I think the cigarette, tobacco sellers are the most efficient capitalist, experiment, right? Like they get you hooked, they let you make, they sell you, they overtax you, and they still make ton of money. Like every business should strive for that. Like Microsoft had that for a while. But I think we should open the discussion to questions from the audience. I think a lot of people have,
I got a question. No one's mentioned the AOL video. You just mentioned that you have the largest video or whatever listing is available. But the AOL is the same claim yesterday, that they secretly, silently have captured the market, and now they have more than anybody else out there compared to whether it be Yahoo or Google. And I just, curious. No one's mentioning them, that they just launched AOL Video, and they're still AOL. What's the panel's opinion of that? In comparison to what they're doing?
who wants to take that?
Well, AOL is part of Time Warner, and frankly, I just don't think it's worked out.
Hey, my options,
Don't quote
I
me on
agree
that.
with Tom. I just left Time Warner, so AOL and Time Warner are the same companies. You can't really say that. But, I agree with you. I think they have one of the better search technologies. They have a lot of video, but can they actually make something out of it? It remains to be seen. Their track record is not very inspiring, And that's just my opinion as an ex-employee. Wow, no questions. Back to me then.
No, there's one over there.
Brian Rubin, Forward TV. I have a question for Jeff. A lot of new vertical media providers that are delivering new forms of content can be both collaborators with the likes of Yahoo and Google or competitors. So as new forms of media content in the video space emerge, how do you look at the difference between those two possible categories of collaborator and competitor? And is that an issue?
So right now, it hasn't really been an issue for us. I think that, back to my earlier point about leveraging our platform for distribution is a powerful mechanism for the content creators and the collaborators. So whether you are uploading your content to us or we engage in a feed relationship, I think that our mission is to provide open programming to the users and provide a platform for the publishers to be discovered, whether those publishers are hosted on our platform or not.
As a follow-up to the AOL question and that question, one of the things, and I was reading this article in Ad Age last night about Comcast trying to build like this video aggregation portal. I mean, how much of a chance do they really have in this space? And I'm talking about Comcast, Cox, Cablevision. What are the cable guys or the phone company guys? What actually are their chances in this market of like becoming big players?
I think it's good, but they have a lot of work to do, and they bring a certain legacy perspective to it. I think they, think of themselves as television companies and television, ergo video providers, and they think of ways to extend what they're doing on the cable television side of the house into the online world. But they tend to think in terms of the same brands, the same kinds of content. And I think they look sort of enviously at YouTube and iFilm and other web video providers out there, Yahoo and others, but they're a little bit mystified by it because it's a little bit beyond their control. It's a little bit unfamiliar. There are no standards for the type of programming that's run in there or what you might find if you dig down deep enough. So I think it's definitely a direction they're going to go in because they feel a certain right of eminent domain in that space, that we are a place that consumers look for video content. And I think they'll move deliberately and cautiously into it. If you look at the Fan right now, and up until now on Comcast, it's been mostly repurposed television product with a smattering of sort of beyond TV product. They haven't really, dived into the pool yet of user-generated and more edge content that you find out on the web. But I think they will find a way to do that. All of our affiliate, over 25 affiliate customers are interested in doing that. So.
Just wanted to mention one thing that was not touched yet is the actual user experience when you watch the video. I think that also will have a big influence who will be the winner in the future. Because with the internet, we can change channel very quickly. We can just go from Yahoo to Google or to YouTube instantly. I think that's a part that needs to be considered too when you look at upcoming companies that you mentioned, if they have a chance or if they're not going to have a chance. If they can provide a really good user experience that people enjoy watching, that comes close to a TV experience, then I think there's a huge opportunity for companies that just come out the door now.
Well, they're also ideally positioned to bridge television, PC, and the mobile player, whether that's cell phone or video iPod. And finding that sweet spot in the nexus between those, 3 different platforms for them is going to be, the privileged position that they want to be in, and how to and discover how to get there.
What about the mobile, marketplace also? There's a lot of people trying to push the idea of, video on your mobile phones. Do you think it's actually a viable opportunity, or is it just like a popular thing to say?
I think television, the word tele is, the first use of the word television was in 1906, about 20 years before BBC had a broadcast capability. And from the Greek, tele means from a remote distance. So any monitor that gets content remotely is really television. So whether it's a handheld or a PDF, it's just the consumer's choice of monitor. So eventually, I think the idea of television, you won't probably have a term IPTV. It's all just going to be called television. And so I don't think it matters ultimately.
It's apparently working for porn a little bit in Europe, and so that's a good indicator that eventually there's a market, right?
Well, I guess I'd just say it's a question of is it going to be over-the-air delivery to what we consider a mobile handset today, or what's that mean? Does that mean to a device that is Wi-Fi? Does that mean over a cellular network, or is it really are we still in a side-loading model where whether that device is a multifunction device, it happens to be a cell phone, but it's got a lot of storage in it, and I can actually sideload off my PC a bunch of content. I don't know which of those is going to take off. I think right now in the U.S. you're seeing a lot more because of the networks and the kinds of devices. I think you see people wanting to sideload content onto devices a lot more. People are streaming news and things that they really want to get on an up-to-date basis on a few of the carriers and the high-speed networks. But
Do you think there's more opportunity for people in the mobile space to kind of actually become the ESPN for mobile or the A&E for mobile by creating specialized content? And should startups or entrepreneurs be focusing on that area a little bit? As the new networks come, DVB Edge and Media Flow happen, or do you still see the traditional brands just dominating that space as well? Anyone?
well, I mean, it's interesting for me to hear A&E be thought of as a traditional brand. I mean, how long has that been around as a channel, right? Not in the grand scheme of things, not that long, right? Several years maybe, but I think if somebody wants to be in a particular content niche, I think it's much better to say, how do I do a really good job at that content niche and focus on delivering a great user experience and a great content experience, and then figure out, okay, and I'm going to deliver to mobile, right? As opposed to saying, I want to be the A&E for mobile, right? It's sort of the technology approach that we often bring to these things is, well, I want to be the Microsoft, or I want to be the Yahoo of handsets, right? Well, that's sort of not, build a great user experience in general, whether it's for biographies or whether it's for whatever kind of content you want to create, and then figure out, okay, great, what limitations do I have to live with on the platform I'm choosing to deliver it with, and it'll work, and you'll be okay. I think the challenge you'll always end up, no matter what, this has been true of all the different media that have come along, there's always a set of incumbents, and they're always going to want to try to keep that incumbent status and keep delivering their own content, and you've got to, as a creative person or someone who wants to create a content business, figure out, is it better to try to fight them on their own turf and create something that's different from what they have and go from there, or do you want to just create content and license it to them and let them be the brand in front of it?
I think you always have to be able to answer the question, what problem are you solving for the consumer in any of these new product offerings? What is it that is going to really drive them to do this on a regular basis? And so, one question I would just ask this group is, how many people in this audience purchase video programming at $1.99, a pop, whether it's a network television program or and download it to their mobile device, and have done that more than once or twice to justify the purchase of their iPod? Meaning, how many people do this in this room, which I would think we all characterize ourselves as early adopters and early users, actually do that on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? Show of hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, five people. So again, then I would ask the question, so what problem are you solving, or how is your life made better by doing that? If I'm a commuter and I have the ability to watch a show that I want to see that I can't record on my TiVo or something else, and you have to sort of go through that exercise, I think, to explore whether it really is a long-term viable business proposition and something that consumers are going to pay for on a regular basis, or is it something that's where the business is right now, but will migrate over more to a subscription type model, whereas you don't want to spend $1.99 for each one of these products on an ongoing basis, but you wouldn't mind paying $4.99 a month or $6.95 a month or something like that to have the ability to do that on a convenience basis when you want to do it and when you have it, and that maybe over time that's where it will gravitate. But the demand isn't big enough yet to really just on a mass market basis to make it a sustainable industry.
So I think it'd be interesting to ask that question in Japan or ask that question in Europe because I do think that it was a great question. And I think it's a great kind of litmus test in an audience like this to see something like that. But I do think we have to remember also that it's not, again, just a U.S. world. And I think from a mobile perspective, we have always been a bit behind. But if you look globally, Asia, Europe, and the way they use mobile devices and how they've embraced that technology, I do think that there is some opportunity there. To take that content into those regions, and as the U.S. plays catch up. But I absolutely agree as well that you have to provide that utility. So what is the incentive for the user? Is it content? I think right now a lot of people are just saying, I'll just repurpose the content for all these different devices. Well, is that really the right long-term approach? Are they specific types of content that will win in those different types of environments from the consumer? And I think from a startup perspective, there's always room for innovation.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and then I think we've run over a little bit.
Yeah, I'd like to get your opinion on what's the requirement and the evolution of the hardware required in order to create the video tipping point. And typically people, and what I mean by that, PCs are in very uncomfortable locations. They're not there wanting to watch a half hour of entertainment. But TV is typically a vegetative experience. Right, so do you have any opinion on the evolution of the hardware that's going to be required to create the video tipping point?
Well, our company is creating a device, I don't know whether this is directly to your question, to be able to assist content owners and both at the proletarian level that you're interested in and the higher level content producers to prepare their video and tag it and cut it in such a way as to be able to have that navigational preview and presentation capability. So from that standpoint, yes, we're creating a device that will help editors and people preparing content. Just to Om's question too about the new content producers, different new technologies have often created new opportunities for content providers. When cable came along, it kind of spawned MTV and other types of new media, and I do think there's an opportunity for content providers to create for the mobile limitations, if you will, or opportunities a different kind of production. So also there on the software side.
So as somebody who tests a lot of these, a lot of the gear which is out there, the video, I think there are two limitations right now. One is the battery life is limited to about 4 hours, unless it improves to about 10 to 15 hours at the very least on dedicated video watching devices. The tipping point is not going to happen, and the screen. So the screen sizes is still very limiting. I mean, if you try to watch a video on a video iPod, and if you're anywhere above age 30, you're having a bit of trouble watching videos. I think we're about 18 months from seeing the first slew of devices which come out and actually have an impact. Some of the products from Qualcomm and Nokia I've seen, I mean, they're again 12 to 18 months out. So those will be the devices which and they have like hard drives built in, have 20-hour battery life. So that's where the market is going. But thank you, panel, for your insights, your comments, and once again, apologies for being late. And